Are you too busy, too stressed out, unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diane Randall, your host. I want to thank you for listening. And if you're new to the show, welcome. It's so exciting to have you here. As you know, Balanced Living for Busy Professionals is a show that teaches the best inner tools and strategies to help you create the life you want. So if you're someone who has habits and patterns that are keeping them stuck, please tune in. This is the show for you. I have an exciting show today. And today we're going to learn how personal transformation can lead us to letting go of clutter, defense, and fears by focusing on building the courage to be honest, vulnerable, authentic, and super clear. My guest is here today to teach us about transparency and how it can empower us in our busy lives. I am so happy to introduce my guest, Penney Pierce. She is a gifted, intuitive empath and visionary, and one of the pioneers in the intuition development movement. Penney is a popular author, lecturer, counselor, and trainer specializing in intuition development, skillful perception, transformation, and dream work. Penney is the author of several books: The Intuitive Way, Frequency, Leap Up Perception, Dream Dictionary for Dummies, The Present Moment, and her latest, Transparency, Seeing Through Our Expanded Human Capacity. Hi, Penney.
Well, hi. It's good to be back.
I'm so excited to have you back. Welcome back to the podcast. I really think this is a good time to talk about transparency.
No kidding. I hear the word on the news every day practically now.
Oh, yeah. So this is why it's so perfect to have you here today. And I'm really excited. I've always enjoyed your books. I don't know if I ever shared with you. I went to the University of Santa Monica and worked on a master's in spirituality. And one of the required readings was the Intuitive Way.
That's right. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So that's how I first read your book and saw your work. And I've been a fan and a student ever since. So I just wanted you to know that.
That is great. That's a great school. I love what they were doing then.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So Penney, let's talk about transparency. How do you define transparency and how can it help us in our busy lives? I know I just said and laughed a bit when I talked about transparency and how it's needed, but really tell us what it is and how it can help us.
Most of us think about transparency as what I've been calling horizontal transparency, meaning it's in the physical world and it has to do with information, basically. Freedom of access to information, accurate information, not redacted and hidden, but, just the facts, ma'am, the real thing. And, so I think that we're still in the information age, and maybe that's why the focus is so strong right now on information. But I was thinking of it as that and what I started calling vertical transparency, which is basically personal transformation where you realize, hey, I am the soul. I don't have a soul. It's not out there at the end of a string somewhere floating around. I'm it right now. I'm in my body. I'm making my reality right now, and I'm it. And so there's something here about the merger of the spiritual world, or the non-physical, we might say, and the physical, earthy worlds, so that spirit is inside matter. The soul is inside the personality. There's one thing. There's a unification. So when you become your soul, basically, you start to remember how things function in the spiritual realms. And it's very frictionless in spirit. There's no fear. and there's no need for healing. Everything's fine. It all works. Everything's interconnected, mutually supportive, and it's kind of a sense that we are aware of the collective nature of our higher selves, that we're all so interconnected at that spiritual level and very helpful to each other. So that, it becomes sort of a shift into a way of living that's extremely harmonious, very easy, fluid. You don't have to struggle. The world is not against you, and that is the transformation I think that we're just starting to go through.
Really, I hear you when you say that, and you say that there's no fear, it's fluid. But how do we even get centered enough in all this current situation we have in the world where there's so much coming at us, so many messages, so much information? How can we be still enough to even understand or even feel or see transparency around us?
That is the question. I in the book, I talk about the fact that we're really in a bridge time right now. We're, partly not in the old reality with old perception, and we're not quite into the new transformed reality that has a totally different kind of perception. We're moving out of linear thinking into something that's spherical and holographic and immediate and all in the present moment. And that's a huge kind of shift to understand. But my book, Leap of Perception, really talks about that. And but one thing I think we have to start off realizing, I'm the soul. That means I'm operating at a much higher frequency than my left brain, and that higher frequency basically is compassion-based, I would say, wisdom-based. And in that world, fear is not the motivator, but compassion becomes the motivator of evolution. And so you have to keep reminding yourself, first of all, I am my soul, I'm here now, and what does that feel like? So in my book, Frequency, I talk a lot about how do you find your home frequency, which is that basically the vibration of the soul in the body. When you like yourself and you feel really in the flow and things are almost like magical.
Yes.
And you feel naturally joyful and everything seems kind of interesting and you might as well entertain yourself as suffer. That state is our preferred state. And it's a choice.
It is a choice, but it's also a lot of noise in the world. I mean, even how can, and that's the question, because I'm starting to, in my life, experience more of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. But I've gone to silent retreats. I do a lot to silence things around me. It's a conscious effort. So how do we collectively, get in the flow of transparency when we're in this world of input, alternate facts, alternate words, deflection? I mean, your book has the book Transparency is so needed in this moment.
Yes. Well, let me try to take that explanation a little further, because first of all, you have to be able to discriminate what your home frequency or preferred state is, as opposed to when you're in anxiety and you've gotten off center and you're contracted around a belief system or a thought or an emotion or something. And then when you're contracted, the soul energy cannot express through you. The fear, you go into your left brain and the fear takes over and you get kind of stuck. And so when you get stuck, it's a matter of taking a breath, coming back to center, realizing, wait a minute, that's not the way I like to feel. I like to feel this way. And then thinking yourself back into it, imagining yourself back into that state of whatever it is for you. For me, it's cheerfulness.
Okay.
Some people, it's joy, amusement, sincerity, sweetness. There are a lot of states of being that are very much of the soul, but shoulds and comparing yourself to others and all that is not. It does not take you there.
Okay.
So that's the first step. And it's just like, no matter when you get off center, and go back into maybe, you're out driving and somebody next to you is angry, or they're driving really in a selfish road rage way. You don't have to match their vibration and go down to their level. You can learn to catch yourself, basically. Return to the way you like to feel. And that's like the first rule. Now, the second part of it is that we are in a stage of the transformation process where everything that is not compassion and wisdom and love is coming up to the surface to be cleared. So that means old traumas, dramas. It could be from this life. It could be from other lifetimes. And then everybody else's are coming up into the conscious mind, which means that's daily reality. Mm. Collectively, the subconscious is clearing out of cultures, and that's like current events in the news.
Yes.
Right? We're seeing the Me Too movement. We're seeing things that are not able to be tolerated anymore because they're too low frequency. That means too much fear, too much control, too much contraction around them, that they can't function in the world anymore. You see? So we're in the middle of this process of releasing those dense things that don't work, and they come to the surface, and then it seems like we're just flooded with this stuff. Right? And that's what you were talking about.
Yes, it does. It does feel that way. If you are looking at the news, you're looking at all these things that are happening. Not everything is negative, but just like you said, the Me Too movement, the students walking and no more. I think it's also a beautiful time. And I do see how collectively we are standing up because there is no more tolerance. I think that part is really beautiful.
Yes.
It's really beautiful. And the world will never, ever be the same, which, we really needed it. I guess this has been circling for a long time. And now, like you said, it's coming up.
What happens is the frequency on the planet is increasing constantly. And that means our bodies are increasing in their vibration. And we're having to let go of things that weigh us down, that are old and boring and slow and sticky, that we don't like anymore. And have the courage to kind of move into these new ways of perceiving and being that are so smooth and so, like I said, frictionless, really. And I think that the young people, they are extremely sensitive to anything that's too old or slow or doesn't work, or, that it's coming out of the old belief systems and thought systems. And, it's just like, it was that old movie, We're Mad as Hell and We Won't Take It Anymore. That one with Faye Dunaway.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like there's a great hunger now for authenticity. When you hear a lie now, people can't stand it. They get angry. And the more you come into your home frequency and your true soul and have that sense of transparency of just, transparency leads you to have faith in your own self and in the audience and in other people's true selves. You can feel through the surface of things, through the personality's mechanisms for trying to protect itself, through that and all that need for that, which is fear-based. You can feel through all that into who people really are. And then if you see that, other people will try to become that, to be with you in that. It's all about seeing people for who they really are, and then not putting attention into those old ways of thinking.
Seeing people for who they are.
So what you put your attention on increases and becomes real. What you take your attention out of dissolves. So if you put your attention on, having guns and I followed a truck today here in Florida that said, if you don't like my flag, which is huge American flag on the back, you can call 1-800-LEAVE the United States or something like that. I was like, oh man, So we've got that kind of fear-based thing, which becomes controlling and aggressive and even violent in their fear of change, and then we've got all the new forms that are becoming in now, like of business and of ways of basically just making your world arise, like of living. And it's so much more elegant. So anyway, I think that it's a habit. To answer your question, don't pay so much attention to all the stuff that's surfacing. Clear yourself. Find the true understanding about why you might have gone into fear around something in the first place. See it from the God's eye view, or the soul's eye view, and see, oh, it was just that, a dog barked in my face. Well, I'm fine. And if I were nice to the dog, it wouldn't have barked at me, and you, as soon as you get understanding, these things dissolve and you're left with wisdom and knowledge underneath.
So are you saying when that fear comes up, you just stay with it? Stay with it.
Right. And recontextualize it as much as possible. Okay. Instead of it, I think everything that we do has some combination of fear and love in it. Certain percentages of fear and love. So if you look at something from the fear point of view, it looks one way. If you look at it from the love, it looks a different way. It's like, what's the gift in the garbage? Like, why is this happening to me? Why am I showing this to myself? What am I learning from this? And what's the good reason for it? And then it becomes something positive instead of something that you think is keeping you from being yourself. It becomes a thing that helps you be more of yourself. And I think we have to learn this habit of shifting these things around from seeing them as blockages to seeing them as benefits. That's one big thing. And then just to move on with the whole idea of transparency is that when you do become transparent, what that kind of means is that you become more simple. Humble, just who am I right now?
Oh, I like that. I like that.
It's like I'm not less than anybody, but I'm just a simple me right now. And I'm not trying to put on a disguise, a mask, a performance or anything. I'm just letting myself express honestly but not being mean, right? And not being necessarily angry or blaming or projecting, but just saying what's real for me.
So what I hear you saying is the more transparent we are, the less we are defined by a lot of other things.
The less the less we become frustrated.
Yes.
Really, I think frustration causes anger and lack. And if it keeps being frustrated, it goes toward violence and hatred.
Violence and hatred.
Yeah. And so if we let ourselves say, hey, this that you were late for meeting me really doesn't work for me, or, anything, just express cleanly without projected energy on top of it. And then let other people do the same and look at everything as information and data. And I think that's important, that neutrality. But see, when you allow yourself to be transparent, you allow yourself to be exposed, that you allow yourself to show up in any given moment for what you are. And even if it's angry, you can say, I guess I'm really angry right now or frustrated because blah, blah, blah. And we all are human. We all do that. But underneath, we are these beautiful, loving, creative, funny, beings, who love each other and are mutually supportive of each other. We want others to win, not lose.
Right. And I feel that it takes a lot more work to be less than authentic.
Yeah, right. Takes more muscles to frown than to smile.
It really does. A lot of thinking, a lot of unnecessary drama and it sounds like being transparent it is easier. I know easier. as I've gotten older, I've become over time more and more transparent. I remember being younger, everything's a secret. Right. Everybody's looking at me and judging me, so I can't say this, I can't say that. But it's so freeing. It's also freeing. It's also freedom to be able to just be who you are.
It's not trying to trick people, play games in order to hide, but you can play games in order to have fun with people. than when they're playing too, and so yeah, it's not about hiding lies, secrets, or any of that. It's about just letting people see who you are. If they can see you, fine. A lot of people won't be able to see you because they're not at the same vibration that you are, so it's something about just making a choice to be authentic and real and vulnerable, which, it's like pretty much a commitment to be in the present moment. And then the next commitment is stay in your home frequency. Remember who you really are. And then when you remember that, then you remember who everybody else is. It's very, if you do it, they do it. If you're transparent, then they feel safe being themselves around you.
So what if someone's listening and they hear you say, be who you are? What if they're like, what is that? How can I be who I really am? What does that really mean?
Yeah, I think it does require some clearing of the clutter that we've taken on and inherited over our lifetime. Concepts we have about who we think we are. For instance, we might have gotten it from our family lineage or our religion lineage or whatever, that we have all these definitions of identity. And what I find is the further you go along on your spiritual path, the more that those stories are kind of boring to you. You don't really care to recite that litany of descriptions of who you think you are and how everybody else is supposed to see you. And then you just are there and in the moment and allowing your spontaneity to respond to whatever. And that means, I think, much more interesting conversations with people. It doesn't mean you're going to release hatred and meanness. But when you realize that you're free to express what you really feel in an honest way, then other people can really understand you, and they often then accept you much more than they did before. There's some really great benefit to vulnerability, is that people trust you more.
I know you told a story. I was listening to you on a podcast, and you talked about vulnerability in a situation moving from California to Florida. You gave that example. I thought that was an awesome example. Can you share that?
Yeah. Because in Northern California, well, actually all over California, it's pretty easy to be spiritual. And I was there for a long time. And when I came to Florida suddenly to help my mother who was getting sick, and I got here, and really there was really not too many people for me to talk to. It was mainly fundamentalist Christian and conservative politically, and everybody goes to church here, and I don't particularly anymore. And then people say, what do you do? And I'd get in trouble by actually telling them. It's very weird conversations.
What did you tell them? I'm curious. What did you tell them?
When I first told them what I was writing about, intuition and consciousness, they'd kind of look at me like cross-eyed and go, but there's a sin, that's a sin, and stuff like that. So finally I just started saying, well, I just write self-help books, and that kind of was okay. But so anyway, I realized that there was not much resonance here for me. So part of my mind thought, I better be careful what I say. And then I said to myself, well, I guess it's okay. I could expand my work up to New York and the East Coast and to Europe a lot more easily. And then a voice in my head said, it's not about expansion. It's about exposure. And I went, what? And just be yourself. Don't be defensive. Don't try to hide. Just be an open space in the field of Florida, and anybody who needs to find you will find you. And, it's not the reason you're there is to expand. It's basically is to be spiritual anywhere, to be able to hold your values no matter where on earth you are. And there's a lot harder places than Florida as well, and so I found then that one night I guess my garage door had somehow gone up, because I know I closed it, but my very conservative neighbor, a guy, called the police around midnight, and they all came out, and I was sound asleep. They came in through my garage into my house, checked around, looked in my bedroom, saw I was asleep, went back outside, closed the doors, locked the doors, and left me a note saying that they had been there. And I thought in the morning, oh my God, I have been literally invaded, which is what I was afraid of before, but by protective forces.
Okay.
So, it was like, just, the right vibration was there, and, it was kind of a healing and a cosmic joke at the same time, So
talk about radical trust. How does that fit in with transparency?
Yeah, I made that word up because radical actually means to get at the root of something. That's what the word comes from. So I thought, well, how does that apply to trust? Well, you have to totally trust yourself, meaning I am the soul and I do know what I'm doing and I'm connected to all other souls and they're helping me. So it's all evolutionary and I can trust what happens in my life. No matter if it seems like a snag or whatever, it's giving me information I need. So I'm going to choose to trust myself and the way my life unfolds. And then I'm going to choose to trust the people around me, the audience, the other players who show up at the same time as I do, and that they have access to the same body of knowledge, and something might come out of their mouth that's really important for me that I couldn't think of. So radical to me just meant trusting not just one thing, but everything, really.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean, what's that story, praise Allah, but tie your camel to the post, Don't be so naive that you just give everything away, but use your common sense as well. But, basically I'd say trust the flow, trust the sanity behind the way things materialize. And that helps an awful lot then with being open.
It helps a lot with being open. Yes, it does. And it's so freeing. I just want to thank you for being here and sharing transparency with all the listeners, because it's an important time. There's a lot of things going on, and I tell you, your book is so relatable right now. And if there's anyone listening who wants to learn more about Penney, her website, her book, her information will be in the show notes of this particular episode. Penney, I want to thank you for being here and sharing your intuitive gifts with us and your wisdom and giving us some tools to help us stay centered
right.
in this moment.
It's like the key thing right now is not to buy into all the craziness.
Not to buy in. And also, transparency empowers us to see through our own situations to help us live our lives better no matter what.
Indeed. Yes. Yes.
So thank you for talking to us today.
Well, I'm glad to be one of your 20 guests this year. This is a very good privilege.
I'm privileged. I love the guests that Balance Living for Busy Professionals attracts. My whole intention is to give people inner tools that they can use to help them in their lives. So you are certainly one of my most favorite guests because your work is definitely in line with helping people see, not necessarily everything with their eyes, but see and feel from the inside out. So it's really beautiful. I want to hear from you. I want to know your comments about the show. And if you have any recommendations for topics that can help support you in your lives, please reach out via DianeRandallConsults.com. Write your feedback or comments right in the show notes for this episode in the comments section. I want to thank everyone who listens to the show. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.